Hey everyone, Sam here from Tank War Room and welcome to History of Tanks. Today we're talking about the Japanese Type 95 Hago. Originally produced in 1936, the Japanese Type 95 Hago was designed as an infantry support tank, and much like the American M3 Stuart, its purpose was never to fight other armoured vehicles. For almost a decade, the Type 95 fought for Japan during their conflicts, but unfortunately, by the time World War II broke out, it was becoming obvious that the Type 95 wasn't up to scratch with the competition. While it could give the American M3 Stuart a run for its money, the Type 95 Hago struggled to compete with such tanks as the ever-popular M4 Sherman. This was because the Type 95 Hago, despite numerous variations and prototypes, was unable to penetrate the thick armour of its opponents. The Type 95 Hago also suffered from poor hull and turret armour, which was troubling as the turret was where the commander would have to sit. This perch was a cramped space and didn't offer the commander much room to accomplish his duties, of which there were many. While there are no longer any surviving relics of the Type 95 Hago in Japan, this tank, that lasted over a decade and fought in numerous major wars, can still be found in museums around the world. With 2,300 units produced, the Type 95 Hago was considered one of the best light tanks of the 1930s and remains an enjoyable and rewarding tank to use in World of Tanks. If you want to learn more about the history of tanks, come and visit us over at tankwarroom.com.
Do we import tanks from other countries, or should we create our own tank industry? And in the end, they decided to give us tanks, and they were exported, they looked at, petrol-driven, 1.45, badly burned by the crew members, and that led the Japanese to decide if they were building tanks, they would be diesels. And this tank is one of the tanks that was designed for its service. It's got a Mitsubishi diesel engine in the rear of it, next to the driver's position at the front. Now the driver is in a very tight space in there, and you can see this is what they call a bell crank suspension system. One of the problems with the early Hagos when they first went out, they tended to set up a rocking motion back and forward, and that led to problems. You were making the crew seasick as they went along. We have a little bit of an issue in the museum with our Hago. We had to seal it because, again, at the time, one of the things they did with the Hago, they lined the interior with asbestos sheets as a way of trying to keep the heat down. They knew where they were going to be fighting out in the Far East, sometimes jungles, and they were trying to actually, obviously, metal just radiates heat. They thought the idea of Britain did as well, actually, we actually put some asbestos on the outside of tanks to try and actually lessen the heat on slightly bigger medium. Now you can see there as the vehicle goes around, this particular Hago was imported many moons ago from Japan. The private owner has been restoring it for quite some time, picking up pieces. He gave a talk here on Friday about it. It's pretty much finished. There's still a few little bits and pieces needed doing to it, but obviously mechanically it seems to be running very well at the moment. So it's probably using kitted gantries now, so that probably is going to be all on here. Very good to the owner. He was able to use that to show off. A little bit earlier today when we were looking at it, one of these quirks of different tanks. All through history, the problem has been to solve the infantry, using tanks. And with the First World War tanks, if you look at our Mark tank, in Britain we put a bell pull on the back of the Mark V tank. So the infantry really drove enough to come up to the tank, pull the bell pull, and it rings a bell inside the vehicle. There's someone trying to talk to it out the back. Now on the Hago, they realised anybody could be doing that, so they disguised a button at the back of the tank. Go and have a look at it, there's a rivet there, there's these little conical rivets all going along the rear. One of those rivets is actually loose, and if you press it, it sets off a horn inside the cab, so the driver knows someone trying to talk to it. And a little bit earlier, Robert, who's wife from Poland, who's been restoring this in Poland, he turned on the electric, showed it to us, and you can really hear that bell.